Hello and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. As always, I'm joined by Nathan, and on this week's episode, we have DOS W's to talk about. 6 points in the bag. Kim Hellberg's magical hellball is back and it's in full flow. Of course, we're going to talk about the win at the Britannia. I don't even think it's called the Britannia anymore, but against Stoke, because I don't care if it's changed name, right? Okay, it's always going to be the Britannia. And we've also got a win and a very convincing, sexy display to talk about from the Riverside's performance today. 4-0 at home to Preston. And yeah, Nathan, you can tell from the nonsense that I'm spouting already, really, that this could be a bit of a delirious pod because Ipswich have dropped points. We're both in a good mood. We're recording this on Saturday evening, and it's just all round good vibes. The feelings are excellent on this Saturday evening, and you've got to make the most of them, don't you?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, a 9 point week, which is unprecedented, really. It's the second time that we've done it this season, but yeah, we're absolutely flying, aren't we? 3 points on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, even, and yeah, that was a massive one going to Stoke and obviously not being at our best and still getting the job done. And then today, you felt like it was going to be another one of a difficult game against a side that are in and around the playoffs, and Borough just duly dispatched them quite comfortably. And we've had a good day of it. 3 points in the bag at lunchtime. Come home, as you say, watch Ipswich drop points on Soccer Saturday. And then I'm sat here now at 7:30 on Saturday night, full of Parmo and feeling very, very excited to just talk about Borough, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this one. I'm not going to lie, and I did see before I hit the record button that you've got a J2 auto wash that Parmo down, which is always a bit of a special occasion one. I feel like they only come out at Christmas time, really. I mean, I know we're past that now, but yeah, not a beer because I mean you're not doing dry Jan, but you're being the health and wellness king that you aspire to be, and you just the standards that those Borough players are setting at the moment. Despite just scrap the Palmo for a second, but the standards that they're setting, that's what Nathan's trying to live up to. But no. What we're going to do this week, which is slightly different to what we've done the last 2 weeks, we're going to talk transfers first because I think with what's gone on this week and also the situation that we're in regards to what's potentially going to go on over the next week, really the kind of final full week before the deadline, I think it's a good place to take stock, chat about the drama and especially one saga that's obviously been going back and forth all week, really. Hopefully that means that you don't just listen to the transfer roundup and then click off the video. But yeah, we'll keep you guessing. We might throw a few hints in there just throughout the Stoke and Preston chatter, just so that you've got to watch the full video in case you miss any little hints, eyes emojis, but in real life terms. Let's talk about Jeremy Sarmiento, Nathan. It was on, it was off, it's back on again, and it's been Middlesbrough and Birmingham wrapped up in another transfer saga.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it? And it was a bit of a funny one at the beginning of last week, really. It looked like Borough were going to be the only team that was mentioned, really, in getting Sarmiento. There was nothing really advanced as we understood it last weekend. It was that nothing was close. It seemed like Brighton possibly were dragging their heels a little bit. Obviously, we sort of understood that Borough would have liked to have made this deal a permanent deal from the beginning. That was always an interesting point for us to sort of look at and understand that, okay, well, we might not be able to get it done permanently, but there might be a loan with an option or obligation in there. It looked like it was always going to be Borough. And then all of a sudden, the reports came out that Borough had been just pulled out the race. They weren't able to advance in talks with Brighton to get a deal done, and Birmingham were swooping in to take Sarmiento on. And from a Borough perspective, you're looking at that thinking, well, we know that he's been up there as number one target for the window. We're going to miss out. And then all of a sudden, I'm driving home from work on Thursday, I think it was, and it comes up that, well, actually, Birmingham have scuppered themselves in this deal, and now Borough are back in the driving seat and going to take Sarmiento on a permanent deal, £3.2 million, and it looks like that one will be done and completed in the next couple of days. Kim Hellberg definitely wants him, as we know. He spoke about him in that post-match interview away at Stoke and said that he's a very good player, but wouldn't really go too much further than that, apart from that he wanted him at Hammarby. But I think that that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Yeah, it looks like a decent signing for Borough, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and I think there's a few things to talk about in regards to this. And firstly, I know Kim Hellberg did joke about not being able to afford him at Hammarby, and I think the fee is probably a good place to start because since the deal has been sort of resurrected and we've seen the reports, multiple reports really, from there was the two Italian journalists who I've actually spoken to both of them, basically just been pestering the pair of them, saying any updates really, and those initial reports stated that it was a £3.4 million deal. I think yesterday, so Friday, we're talking, there was Ben Jacobs and Alex Crook who both reported it to be in excess of 5 million, including add-ons. Now, this is something that we've gone out and actually checked out ourselves and chased up, and we believe, as the same as what Dom reported it, but we're confident in saying that this is a £3.2 million deal that's been agreed. Now, there is add-ons in that, but in terms of it being in excess of 5 million, we don't understand that to be the case. And as I say, the kind of initial fee, obviously, in terms of the way it's structured and add-ons, of course, some add-ons will be very achievable. Some add-ons that will increase that 3.2 million might well be very unachievable. And if, let's say, we do end up having to pay that money, the chances are that it's been a very successful signing because we've probably been promoted. Sarmiento's scored X amount of goals and I don't know, being called up to the World Cup squad as well. With that being said, obviously that's the fee part covered. In terms of the actual drama of it and the story behind why the deal looks like it's going to go ahead and Borough are going to get their man eventually. Another thing that we've had it made quite clear to us is that this is largely down to Sarmiento making it very, very clear that his preference is Middlesbrough. Now, yes, it's understandable. Middlesbrough are in a great league position. They're playing great football, and they've got a track record of signing players and developing them on, and then going on to bigger and better things. And I don't mean any disrespect by saying that, but I think it is really, really delightful as a fan when somebody who has other options and could probably get more money at Birmingham makes it abundantly clear that his preference is to join your football club. And in this circumstance, it certainly seems like Sarmiento is pushed for it, really.
Yeah, definitely. Then that is really, really nice. I think that something as well that's been spoken to us about is that Sarmiento is a player that Kim Hellberg really, really likes and really wants. I mean, look, you saw the post-match interview at Stoke the other day, in which, albeit he's not going to speak in like vast amount of detail at the minute,
Yeah.
because as most managers usually say, he's not our player, so I'm not going to speak on him, and that's totally fine. But from the little that he did speak on him, you could tell that he was very sort of admirable about Sarmiento, which is really, really nice to hear. And it's important that you back your manager. The proof is in the pudding with the results at the moment, that the manager's doing a really, really good job. And Sarmiento on a permanent deal is really nice. A player that's been in and around the championship for the last 2 or 3 seasons now and has never really been able to settle and find a permanent home. And I think that getting him on a permanent deal, even if, look, it's looking way into the future, but if you land in the Premier League and he's not the type of player that can make that step up, which, look, it'll be made clear in due course. If he's not that type of player to make a step up, every team in this division would have a bit of Jeremy Sarmiento.
Yeah, yeah, they absolutely would. You're right. And I think, obviously, on the Sarmiento case, it's one that's exciting because obviously it's a signing that Hellberg has made as much as he can at the moment clear, like you've said, that he wants that player. And I think from everything that I've watched, and obviously there's different videos out. I think is it Jack Ward who's done a couple of different videos on Borough signings. His videos are quite good in terms of just demonstrating what players have been able to do in the past. And I think in terms of where he fits into Kim Hellberg's Middlesbrough team, not only are you signing a player that will take on a man, is tricky, he's got a low centre of gravity and gives us something that we don't really have at all in our attacking lineup. I think also his defensive actions and his pressing and his energy are all attributes that Kim Hellberg will also love. And given that he spoke about Tommy Conway and everything that he offers the team, it does genuinely seem like he takes just as much comfort in a player winning the ball back high up than he does someone beating three players and putting a cross in the box. So those kind of attributes, definitely something to be excited about in terms of adding him into the mix. Some players that probably are not going to be joining Middlesbrough, I think we can confidently say that. Cameron Archer, the rumours started during the week. Everything that we hear, he's not a player that Borough are trying to target at all. There was also a few little murmurings about Rio Ingamoa from Liverpool. Again, I think that situation is very much Borough would love to have him, as would every single Championship team, but it's virtually impossible that Middlesbrough are going to sign him. So yeah, I don't think either of those players will be playing in a red shirt. Well, I say a red shirt of Middlesbrough in particular post the January transfer window. So I think obviously in terms of incomings and what we can say is definitely not happening, those two are really the only kind of they weren't even officially linked. They were just more hearsay and rumors that have kind of spiraled out of control and made it onto platforms of people actually talking about them. In terms of players that actually may genuinely be joining the club, and perhaps less specifically rather than player names, but player profiles and what Borough want to achieve in the final week of the transfer window. I think it's no secret that Borough are trying to bring in a striker. And again, prior to the Sarmiento deal being resurrected, all of the noises when we've asked questions and tried to dig a little bit deeper to find out what the hope is for the final sort of 8 days of the transfer window, whatever it is that the club want two in, and that's two attackers. Obviously, Sarmiento would be one of those. The other one, it hasn't been expressed in clear terms. Yes, it's a number nine, but I think but anyone reading between the lines, Nathan, can understand that Borough kind of want to put that, as I said last week on the podcast, cherry on top of the icing in the form of a striker that will hopefully be the man that fires Borough a promotion.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, as is always the case in my lifetime anyway, watching Middlesbrough, and look, there haven't been too many big sort of promotion campaigns in our lifetime, I suppose. But Steve Gibson cares about optics, I think, and he will be looking to, in the final week of this window, put a statement down that, look, we are really going for it and we are going to sign a centre forward that's going to try and push us over the line. The only thing that I would ask, which I suppose it's an interesting discussion point for us to have, what type of centre forward do you reckon that we'll be looking for? Whether it's a nippy in behind centre forward or someone that can be more of a physical profile that can sort of link the play and hold things up a little bit. What do you think that we'd be looking for in this Hellberg system, obviously with Strelec and Sen to come back from injury in the next week or so, and obviously Conway up front as well. I think it'd be an interesting question to pose to you.
Yeah, I think I thought about this quite a lot actually over the past couple of days, and actually, I think the last thing that Borough need is a number nine that wants to run in behind. Because let's be honest, Borough aren't going to play many teams that is going to allow that to happen. And like even if I use Latif for an example, yes, okay, he would come in and he would probably be our best striker. But also, how many times are you really gonna get the ball in behind for Latif when you're playing against teams that are pretty much just gonna sit on the edge of their own box? like, yes, okay, there's quality there, of course, and I'm not for 1 minute saying that Borough are going to try and sign Latif or even have any interest in doing so, but just as an example of a type of striker, I think what Borough should be looking at, and I think what they will look at, is a slightly different profile to what's there currently. I think Hellberg, judging from what he's used previously, isn't opposed to using a more physical profile as a nine to, as you put it, play with the back to goal, link up play, give Borough something to get all of their intricate number 10s, your Castledines, your McGrees, your hopefully Sarmientos and Whitakers playing in and around. I think that would obviously be a really nice fit. It would be so like obvious for me to say just a goal scorer, but I think just someone, and it's interesting now. I know we've spoken about Archer not happening, but Archer, if you remember back in the Carrick season, there was an awful lot of games where Archer would go 50 or 60 minutes with literally doing nothing. Now, what we've got at the club at the moment in terms of the number nine who was playing every game, and yes, there's injuries, but he's going to continue. And I think even if Strelec and Sen were available, he'd still be playing. Tommy Conway is happy drifting out to the left, chasing loose balls, chasing lost causes, and putting in the groundwork. So I think if you look at it in terms of if we move back to a 4-2-2, having Tommy Conway as one profile and having someone that can play with his back to goal and link up things in and around him, who's also not adverse to sticking the ball in the back of the net, it makes sense. But ultimately, I think, and what Borough have been good at over the last few years in the transfer window with the likes of Ben Doak, for example, I think they'll be looking, and Kim Hellberg has said he's involved in all of the conversations. He expresses what he wants whilst also speaking with the recruitment team and asking them how they view the team and how they view different profiles. I think what Middlesbrough have been very good at is they will and have been able to previously pivot on that. So even if Hellberg has said, I would quite like a more physical profile, if an opportunity comes up and Middlesbrough think, well, I didn't think he was available at the start of the transfer window, and it's not necessarily a physical profile, but it's someone that has a great record of scoring goals in the division or is on fire in a different league around Europe, I think they would be open-minded enough to change their stance on that.
Yeah, totally. I'd agree. It is difficult when you pose a question like that. Obviously, we're talking more about a profile there, as in a player that's nippy and would get in behind or a physical profile. It would just be easy to say, yeah,
Someone that sticks the ball in the net.
someone that scores goals, yeah, because that is literally the answer, but it's hard to sort of put a label on that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Players that you can get players in that have a track record of scoring goals in this division and they turn out to be like Rudy Gusted. Look, fingers crossed, whatever business that Borough do between now and the end of the window, if there is any, I mean, fingers crossed there will be. I think that me and you both expect that there will be a centre forward of some kind coming through the Rockcliffe door before the end of the transfer window. Fingers crossed they are the type that can just bang in a few goals for us,
Yeah.
no matter the circumstance, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just closing out on the transfer segment, because we have spoke quite a fair bit and we do have two wins to talk about as well. If we are going to bring in a striker, I think one thing's for certain, and I said last week that with the Sarmiento stuff and with the Delano Bergsorg stuff, it is almost a little game of dominoes where if certain dominoes fall into place, Delano Bergsorg might still go to Bristol City, Jeremy Sarmiento might still sign for Middlesbrough. Now, it is interesting when we're talking about outgoings, and we are going to move on to that now, that at the beginning of the week, all the noises were Borough have decided to keep Delano Bergsorg, and that was a decision made before his winner at West Brom, and it was a decision that really created a lot of narrative that, oh, well, Borough aren't signing a striker then because he's staying, so where else does he fit otherwise? And Kim Hellberg has always used him really as a striker, so it would make no sense to keep him round and then bring in another striker because it would just, numbers wise, be a complete mess, really. Later on last week, the Bristol City manager did actually come out and admit that the striker that Bristol City have felt like they've been close to numerous times was Delano Bergsog, and Middlesbrough put a stop to it. Now, interestingly, in terms of timelines, that did come out around about the time where the Sarmiento deal looked to be off. So I think we would still need to sign a striker in order for Bergsog to depart. But I think when you look at the domino theory, Bristol City have just received 3 million for Anis Mehmet. They've also look like they're going to sell Zach Viner. Now, to appease fans, to get fans back on side and really please their manager because he's been making some pretty outrageous statements really in the press about how, that him and his team are doing everything they possibly can, but they need help from above them really. Might they go and come back to the table with Bergsorg if we sign a striker and say, well, you've bought your striker now, Sarmiento's in the door. How about if we sign Delano Bergsorg? Or they might say, we've got money in our pocket now, we can now pay a fee for Bergsorg, or offer you slightly more where you'll go, actually, yeah, I think that works for all parties. I think that's one to consider, and I think that will, like we spoke about last week, really, I think that one seems key in incoming business. That almost feels intertwined. I also think that there's a couple of exits that could happen which really don't sort of hinge on anything in particular happening. I think it hinges more on clubs actually being interested, and that's the be all and end all, really, in terms of moving players out. You need interested parties. And when you're looking at Abdoulaye Kante, possibly a loan, but you kind of think, what kind of loan does he need? Do you want to keep him in England? I don't think he's going to get many minutes, really. He's not even getting on the bench at the moment. Sven Naipan, uh, it's still a situation where he's looking really like, unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out, and it would probably benefit him to go back to City and then get another loan move. Sonjay Hansen, yet again, for the last two games, has been an unused substitute, and again, Micah Hamilton hasn't played any minutes at all other than for the reserve team, and he hasn't made squads for a few weeks. And those, as well as Dieng, that's just still rolling on strangely. But they don't feel like Bergsorg in the sense of they could all still get moves elsewhere, both permanent or on loan, really. And I don't think anything would have to be incoming for that to happen.
No, I don't think so. I think those players would just be shifted out. I think in Kante's situation as well, obviously, McCabe has come back to the football club this month and can't go out again. So you are covered by another body in there now.
Yeah.
So you can probably look at moving Kante on loan. I suspect that they still have high hopes for him. I mean, he was given a 5-year deal when he signed in the summer, but just hasn't had any minutes, has he? And obviously, he's been injured as well, to be fair. So I'd suspect that he would be moved on. But obviously, it's up to the club to decide where would be best for him to go on loan. And then, as you say, there are a couple of players, fringe players in this squad that are in and out making squads, really. And those players need loans, but as you said, it does depend on the interest in them. In Hamilton's case, he was given a loan to the top end of League One last year and couldn't really get in their squads, to be fair. So it sort of shows the level that you're at. But I'm sure that there will be some clubs in England that are willing to take a couple of our players. But yeah, the main one really is Bergsorg. He has had interest in him this month. There has been the flip flop of yeah, he's going and no, okay, now he's not going. But as I've alluded to earlier with Steve Gibson and his optics, from a Bristol City perspective, it's quite evident that Delano Bergsorg was number one target for Bristol City in the striking department this season. They've now sold the best player. You have to go all out and sign your number one striking target. You've got money in the bag now. If your manager wants him so much, go on then, cough up the money.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, it's been reported from the Northern Echo, but just this is based off my gut feeling more than anything. I do think we'll see a decent amount, including Sarmiento. This is, but I do think we'll see in and out. a fair bit of business still go on. I could be totally wrong there. That's based just off a gut feeling rather than any information. So if it's dead quiet and everyone's at the pub on deadline day, then don't blame me. But yeah, Nathan, moving on to the actual football because we've spoken plenty about transfers there. Stoke on Wednesday night. It was an unchanged team. You looked at the starting 11 and given the late drama at West Brom in the game previously, I think there was probably a bit of anticipation that we might see at least one change, possibly Gilbert come out for Delano Bergsorg, obviously the hero at the Hawthorns. That wasn't to be the case. I don't think any of the rest of the team really was too much of a shock. But I think what was a shock was that Borough, unlike they have at all really under Hellberg, were pretty slow out the traps in the first half.
Yeah, I think the top and bottom of it is we were really, really poor in the opening probably 45 minutes, if we're totally honest. There was periods where we went from being absolutely horrendous to just horrendous, but we were really poor throughout that first half. Passes going astray from usual reliable players in Hackney, Morris, and Malander. Gilbert just didn't really look involved in the game at all. Whenever the ball came to him, he lost it. Yeah, we just really, really struggled to get on the ball a lot, and a lot of that, to be fair, is down to Stoke. I thought that they played quite well in that first half, and always were aggressive in winning second balls. We'd sort of play one pass into one player and try and sort of turn it around the corner quite quickly, but they'd always read that next pass and take it off us and sort of drive up the pitch. The goal's a shocker for Sol Bryn, really, and everyone knows that. Bryn knows that. It's squirmed underneath his hands and it's a bad one. He sort of makes up for it a little bit with a save from Manhoff a couple of minutes after, which if that goes in, I think it's almost game done at that point.
Yeah.
A nice one for us to sort of get in at half time at 1-0 and sort of just try and kick each other up the backside a little bit and say, right, come on, we're 1-0 down, but this game's not done yet. Stoke going into the game had loads of injury problems and they've had to sort of go again on the Wednesday night fixture. So in the back of my own mind, I thought these are probably going to tire out a little bit from the energy that they've showed in the opening 45, and Borough might be able to pick them off a little bit. But we make the changes at half time. Castledine and Bergsorg come on for Silvera and Gilbert and sort of just injected the energy that we needed. And to be fair, I think that the game really does turn on Alan Brown scoring after 2 minutes of the second half. You get that early goal, you get that equaliser that is so vitally important, and all of a sudden you've got 45 minutes to get out a team that's depleted physically and haven't really got the options off the bench to change things, and you can sort of just put them to the sword a little bit, or at least try. And yeah, a difficult night, horrible conditions. Borough definitely not at their best, but a goal from Alan Brown 5 yards out, which to be fair, it's a really good finish over Lual's head, and then a scrappy one at the back post for your man Tommy Conway, where he gets it wrong first time but puts it in at the second attempt, gets his first goal in what feels like forever from open play, and Borough get a massive, massive 3 points on the road.
What do you mean he messed it up the first time? He just controlled it with his arse, didn't he? No, I was really, I must say, as much as I was disappointed, can I just point out that Don Goodman in the first half made out that Middlesbrough were literally like a local pub side that they dragged onto the pitch. And he spent his first 15 minutes of the first half saying, well, Borough just don't have the ball like they would usually do. I mean, they did have the ball, they were giving it away a lot. But then the possession stats come up, and Middlesbrough were dominating possession. Despite giving it away, they still had more of the ball. So nice one, Don. That was some really good analysis from you, mate. In terms of the first half, though, and moving on to the second half, you're right. I think it almost in the second half, when everyone goes into home games and expects someone to sit deep, you go, "Oh, first goal's going to be crucial." The timing of this goal felt crucial. Brown, as you say, lofting it high into the net. And I know a lot of people will say, well, he's just smashed it in from a few yards out, but I actually think it's a lot more of a difficult finish than what he makes it look. And to be fair, Alan Brown, obviously, we'll talk about him, his exploits today, but I don't know if you have noticed, he got one at Southampton from chasing in from a rebound off Bazunu, who spilled. And he actually played a part in the Preston equaliser earlier on this season. He does have a knack of finding nice positions in the box and getting on the end of things. So I think that the little role that he's found himself in, whether it be right back or advanced right wing back, when Alan Brown's in the box, there's usually danger for the opposition, really. So yeah, keep getting yourself in there, Brownie. But yeah, I think we've got to talk about Tommy Conway and look, whether it does play its part or not, the fact that Kim Hellberg gave a 2-3 minute answer about how much he loved Tommy Conway and how he makes him emotional about how much he puts in for the team and how he's almost like an old school player that not everything's about statistics, it's about working hard for your team and being a brilliant teammate. Whether that has an impact on Tommy Conway's confidence to somehow stab that ball into the back of the net, I'm not sure, but I'm going to say it is because in my head he's a genius, and not only a genius on the pitch, he's a mental genius as well. So he's got in the mind of Tommy Conway, and he's repaid the favour thanks to that lovely answer in the press conference. But in all seriousness, it is literally the old cliche of, well, one will go in off your arse and then you'll start scoring again. And it was more or less that. But I actually felt that Tommy Conway was really good on the night. And I was just glad that Hellberg dispelled the myth about, oh, well, he just drifts out left for no reason. And I think it had gone too far one way that, oh, well, Conway's not scoring, so his whole just performances are rubbish. I think his performances throughout this season have been quite good, and I understand completely that he hadn't been scoring and why people were absolutely furious with him. But yeah, I think, I mean, you know my thoughts on him. We're not going to get locked into a debate because we've had enough in just back and forwards on message, let alone on the podcast. But I'm really glad that, and especially not just the goal, but the fact that it was the match winning goal as well. And Borough dug deep in the second half. They really did. I thought, as you say, Bergsorg and Castledine really made an impact. Castledine was involved a little bit in the first goal, especially. Wonderful cross in from Brown for the second goal, just to touch on him being excellent again in that right back position. And then I think you skip right until the last few minutes and a couple of sober Thomas deliveries into the box that really, really had you hiding behind the sofa. But ultimately, Dale Fry does enough to put off Cisse in the last seconds, and he, after a Bryn save, I must say, stops him or prevents him from having that composure to stick it in the back of the net when Bryn makes the initial save. I know just before that, Thomas had swung one in and Bryn kind of just, looked as though he was just letting it go over his head, but it didn't feel like that at the time. But yeah, I think overall, and cliche alert again, I'm going for another one this podcast. I'm setting a record, but good teams win games, or teams that want to get promoted have got to win games when they're at the worst, really. And to be honest, I think the first half, not the second half, but the first half probably was one of Borough's worst 45s under Kim Hellberg. So the fact we were able to do that away from home at a ground we've struggled at, it gave me so much confidence going into the Preston game.
Yeah, winning ugly. And to be fair, even though we scored those two goals in the second half, I still didn't think that we were really great.
No,
I thought that we were like quite poor on the whole throughout the night, really. But great grit, great determination to dig in, get those two goals, get yourselves in front in the game, and just see it out. Obviously, it helps that they had a man sent off as well in the game, sort of late, but probably should have been sent off 5 minutes before anyway. But yeah, a nice win that away at Stoke, and always nice to get one over on Mark Robbins. The Jesus God, yeah, we'll move on to sort of Preston now, but as Sorba Thomas says, Borough just play for the sake of playing, don't they?
well, they did that today and they won 4-0, so can't be that bad, really, sober. No need to be bitter, like. But anyway, we obliterated Preston today, didn't we, Nathan? There was changes. Somewhat of a shock and praise to Hellberg again because you look at the team sheet, you see Castledine's in, you think, great. had a bright impact against Stoke. No Bergsorg, he thought, all right, he could have played. The other change, obviously Gilbert, it was that kind of left 10 role that Castledine comes in for. The other change was Silvera, but for Dale Fry. And I think that not only goes to show that Kim Hellberg is somewhat of a genius, but a brave one at that, because at home, and we've used the word optics, and I know it's not like a FIFA formation where you are set in this shape. It is very fluid and interchangeable. Alan Brown, we all thought could slot into midfield, could play higher. The shape was going to change whether we had possession or not. But to go to a back five at home and bring Dale Fry back into the team, I would say is quite a bold shout, really, when you're playing against a Preston team that, to be honest, we knew exactly what they were going to try and do. They tried it, and they were really bad at it. But I think Middlesbrough made them also look really bad at it as well.
Yeah, to be fair, this shocked me a little bit, Preston. In the opening 5 or so minutes of the game, I thought, right, okay, this is the Preston that I expected to see. Midfielders ratting about and trying to sort of get on top of Borough players, trying to disrupt the rhythm a little bit. And obviously, they had a couple of set plays early on in the game. I mean, first of all, what's your take? Is it a pen? Isn't it a pen? The ball comes off target's head or chest, and as he goes to clear it with his left foot, as it's dropping down, it hits his left hand. Pen or no pen?
If it's in the other box, I'm screaming pen and throwing accusations that there's match fixing going on. But because it's Matt Target, I'm gonna say I think he's. Do you know what? In all seriousness, if I'm looking at it if I just take all my biases out of this, I actually don't know what the handball rule is anymore. And I don't know because it's hit another part of him first and then hit his hand, and it's not intentional, whether that still counts as a handball. I honestly don't know. I'm claiming for it, and I think Preston fans have probably got every right to think, well, he's in a position where he's defending his own goal line, more or less. The corner's been swung in. It's from an attacking scenario, from an attacking corner, and the ball's hit his hand in the box. What more do we have to do to get a penalty? Just because it hits another part of his body, I would probably say no, but I can see it either way, to be totally honest.
Yeah, and I'd probably argue that it's not in an unnatural position either.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
down by his side, albeit stretched. Like
yeah.
it is sort of bent, and the ball hits his arm as it comes down off his chest. But suppose you can class it as one that we get away from, and it's a nice one to get away from because the first game, the first goal in any game feels massive. But I spoke at length about Preston last week and said that they're just going to come and just do what Preston usually do. Three defenders who like to defend and just head it and kick it. Three midfielders who run about and rat about and technically aren't great. And they are just going to sort of sit in their shape and say, go on then, try and break us down. And if you concede that first goal, it's an absolutely brutal watch for the next 85 minutes of the game. If you watch Preston just sit in a low block and play haram ball. So it was actually sort of quite nice for once that that didn't go their way. And Borough, after the first 5 minutes, got the foot on the ball a little bit, got into our rhythm a little bit more, started being a little bit more comfortable on the ball. And it felt like Preston's sort of tactic for the day was, right, we're going to be very compact in the middle of the pitch, in the centre of the pitch. We know Whitaker's going to be sort of inverting and playing as one of those attacking midfield players, very central with Hackney and Morris in there as well. Castledine's probably going to go in there as well and make that a four and a box. So we're going to make it very compact in here, and Borough just won't have anything. So instead, we just played around the side of them and over the top of them instead. And the first goal is literally that, over the top from Matt Target. Borough just playing for the sake of playing, I suppose. Sorba Thomas with just one long ball over the top and Alan Brown's in behind. And to be fair It's a great touch and it's a great finish. And all that on Alan Brown, you alluded to it earlier. It is now 3 goals in his last 4 league appearances for Borough, which is just remarkable considering he's playing right back.
Yeah, well, the goal is literally wing back to wing back, isn't it? And you look at it from an attacking perspective from wing backs and you think, hell of a ball from target. Great touch and finish from Brown. From a Preston wing back perspective, you look at Jamal Lewis and think, what is he doing? Brown is just stronger than him, puts an arm on him, and he just falls to the ground. I don't know what he's doing. But I think the visual of Alan Brown, relatively early in the game, let's just say, the visual of Alan Brown almost having the freedom of the whole box to get his shot off, well, to bring the ball down firstly and get his shot off, is something that feels crazy to see given who we're playing against, but then probably highlights how impressive the engineering of these types of chances are and the rotations and the probably the groundwork and the theory sessions and all of the little weaknesses that Kim Hellberg and his coaching staff have looked to exploit. I thought we actually played slightly, well, of course we did because we played in a different shape, but I felt in the first half we played differently. But that, to me, is more impressive that we've adapted. And as you say, he's almost double bluffed Preston and Heckingbottom in a way in the sense of, right, well, I think he's going to do this, so we're going to match them up. We're also going to divert away from being very intricate in that little box midfield and trying to pass our way through in tight little gaps and create the perfect goal. We're actually just going to go a little bit longer. And it worked not only for Brown's goal, it works for the second goal where Ayling almost, albeit on the other sides of the pitch, Ayling to Conway felt very much like the opener in this fixture last season.
Yeah,
Same channel ball, Conway goes through. The goalkeeper helps him out a little bit here, but yeah, the home games, I think especially when, and obviously everyone's got different seats in the stadium, but I think especially from where we sit in the ground on the west stand, which is just like more or less slap bang on the halfway line, you almost appreciate the build up more, I think, because you see it from both sides. And sometimes, obviously, when we're attacking the south stand second half, it's probably a little bit clearer because you see which midfielders are dropping in or which fullbacks are going a little bit higher. I think today, obviously, Brown in the second half is higher, but he's on our side second half, and it's just absolute a thing to behold of because again, it feels like yeah, we've got some real quality in our team, but it also feels like the managerial battle has just been won by Hellberg again.
yeah, totally. It felt like a little bit today where, to be fair, I might have to go back and watch it again, but it felt like we missed out the midfield a lot
Yeah,
today in creating a lot of chances, which was just fine. We'll keep the ball between our centre halves, who, to be fair, Malander and Ayling are both very, very capable of firing balls through the lines and in behind, as is literally proven by Ayling's assist for Conway's first. A lovely little ball down the side, and to be fair, it's great movement from Borough to sort of just create that avenue for Ayling to play that pass up the line. Conway in behind, you're just hoping that after his opener of this little run in the week that he can sort of continue that. And do you want to know what? It goes through the keeper's legs, and I actually think he's aiming to put it through the keeper's legs as well. It just happens to take a nick off his instep and goes in the corner a little bit more nicely. But yeah, it's a really, really nice finish from Tommy Conway, and fingers crossed he goes on a run now. I think this is what we've all been hoping for, that when he gets a chance, he finally sticks it away, and then that just boosts his confidence tenfold, makes him feel like the guy, and yeah, he can go on a little bit of a run for us now because we're going to need him. But gets you 2-0 up, and you think, right, okay, you can have a sigh of relief now a little bit. Preston probably aren't going to be able to pull back two at the Riverside. if they do, I'll be very, very shocked. And they just were the architects of their own downfall all day. This sort of idea that they were going to compact the midfield and just sort of ignore any other threat that Borough might have was, well, stupid in the end. If you look at the full-time result, played balls just round the side of you and over the top of you, scored 2 goals, and then you want to dick about at the back. And to be fair, we should have been 3-0 up already with Alan Brown had another effort in the box, free as a bird once again, and he stroked it wide. But this one, the keeper rolls it out to Gibson, who just thinks he's got all the time in the world. And it is literally as simple as Whitaker just ran next to him, took the ball off him, had a shot and scored.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we need to analyze anymore. That is quite literally exactly what happened, and I think at that point it became almost like a mental side of the game that had become flawed. It wasn't even tactical. They just lost their heads completely, and it was like I'm sure Stuart McCall and I'm sure Paul Heckingbottom just wanted the players in at half time and just to absolutely basically annihilate them. I'm sure because some of the decision making was just bizarre. And as you say, I mean, the Brown one was before Conway scores, and I think there was other chances as well in that first half. But it almost, and we spoke about going longer. The idea that you can allow Luke Ayling that much time to pick out long passes really, really stupid. Because I know we always talk about it being an underrated attribute of his game, but how many times do you see Luke Ayling, when he's got enough time and space, pick out longer passes that you look back at and think you can tell why he's played in the Premier League? And this
Done
and
it
this,
already, he's done it already this season for like Cali Senaway at
yeah,
Southampton.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's not only him because Target's got it in his locker, but then you also think, well, Melander's pretty always forward thinking with his distribution, and it shocked me really. We were great, and we made a bad performance look even worse than it was. We absolutely capitalized on it, and I think one repetitive theme, and it continued in the second half. Castledine was good at it. Conway, if you watch his run back for the goal, it comes from that. They'd obviously worked on an out to in run because the amount of times that Conway started or Castledine started on the right sided centre back and Ayling has the ball and just goes straight across in a that well in behind or diagonal run. Out to in runs were just their kryptonite. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know who to pick up. It was, as you say, it was almost as though their whole concentration is right, we've got to stop Hackney and Morris getting on the ball, that they just forgot about all of the other quality in the team, and it played into Borough's hands. We obviously go in 3-0 up, and you feel like, right, okay, that's game done and dusted, but you're also keeping one eye on things like, okay, they don't look great. They can't come out worse in the second half, but if we do catch them on an off day again in the second half, then you've got to look at goal difference and improving that. I mean, Coventry's goal difference is ridiculous. Ipswich is really good anyway, but you want to close that gap as much as possible, even though you've effectively won the game at that point. And to be honest, Tommy Conway again looks like he's going to go through clumsy as anything. Jordan Story, I don't really know what he's doing. It's just an absolute comedy of errors from him in terms of how he gets in that position in the first place, how he drags him down. Conway, some people might argue he should have stayed on his feet, but he gets him sent off ultimately. And to be honest, I do actually think he halts him and brings him down. It's not a case of Tommy Conway diving, as most of the referees in the division seem to think he's at it all the time. And then once they go down to 10, Leo Castledine lines up a nice free kick. And I think this one, it's not a bad effort from Castledine, but if you're the Preston North End manager, fans, Preston players, you're just looking at the goalkeeper thinking, I hope Daniel Iverson's back as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it falls nicely to Conway to just tap in and another one where you've just got to follow those in. You never know what's going to come from these goalkeepers in the Championship. Yeah, you get the fourth. And to be fair, it might sound daft, but when a team turn up at the Riverside and you're 3-0 up at half time or it goes 4 and the team's down to 10, it's great. It makes me feel good. It's we've won the game, but it just makes the next 40 minutes just a procession and a training game where Borough just we're not really exerting too much energy, which look, I totally get it. You're 4-0 up in the game, up against 10 men. They're offering nothing. I think there was one cross that Solbrin had to claim all day,
Yeah.
really. And you can just sort of knock the ball around and it be very, very comfortable. We didn't really threaten all too much from that point. You can sort of bring off a couple of your players who've played a lot of minutes in the last couple of games and give them a little bit of a rest, which is really nice. It's 4-0, 3 points in the bag. You got to see Hellberg's fist pumps again. It's the maddest, weirdest 4 game spells that I think I've seen in a while. First 4 games won. Next 4 games, none won, no goal scored. Next 4 games, 4-1, scored 13. I hope we
Not
don't
a-
go. I hope we don't go on a barren run again.
I was gonna say I hope these runs of results don't come in force, like, because I'm not looking forward to the next couple of games if that is the case. But no, I think, like you say, the game state totally changes when you're 4-0 up at the Riverside because we've got a load of good players on the pitch and you're just thinking, don't get injured, don't get injured, don't get injured. And when Jordan Thompson, I think, commits GBH on Malanda, I'm just head in hands, sat 4-0 up, thinking, oh my God, one of our best players is now in a heap on the floor. Genuinely concerned about his health, by the way, because it's the most blatant red card I've ever seen. But that is the risk, I think. And obviously, the crowd are giving the Olays and everything, and frustration builds in an opposition. And I did think it was really naughty, to be honest. He should have gone. He should have walked for it. But thank God Malanda got up. I know he come off, but he was walking round at the end of the game and looked absolutely fine. So it doesn't look like there's any danger of concussion or anything like that. I think you'd have to hit him with a hammer, to be honest. Never mind an elbow and knock him out because he's an absolute unit. So yeah, we obviously saw a couple of minutes for Finley Munro as well, which was nice to see a debut there. But overall, as you say, if you're looking at it from a week, 9 points. You've closed the gap on Ipswich. You've closed the gap and put a little bit of pressure on Coventry. Obviously, they've still got to play Norwich on Monday, but of course, it's the psychological thing of playing first and putting them under a little bit of pressure. And then you look ahead really to, well, I've just touched on them there, Norwich, but you look ahead to the next game and you think, what kind of test, what kind of performance are they going to put up? Because I'll imagine they'll probably watch this game, or Philippe Clement will be watching this game and think, right, well, we'll just do the complete opposite to what Preston did today.
Yeah, so let Hackney and Morris play and they'll just walk all over you as well. So yeah, look, Norwich are going to be a difficult test, but just a last sort of shout on the week, which is I think that you've seen a little bit of a coming of age this week of the group, which look, they've been great all season to be fair, but this week has been the return of championship action from last Friday and this 3 game week. And we've had to go 2 away games for a start and then a home, which is very difficult to do that. But also be the team that plays first on the Friday that has to set the tone, the team that has to reply on the Wednesday to the results on the Tuesday, and then again the team that sets the tone again on this Saturday afternoon. And we've been faultless all the way through in our results, which is top draw, really, really good. And the last 2 3 game weeks that you've had, which have been Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, or in our case, Friday, Wednesday, Saturday, have been 9 point week in January and 9 point week at the start of December as well. So really, really good. Now Norwich, which is a funny
Uh,
one.
yeah, can I just say as well, in terms of, I just want to add to your point that you've just made before Norwich, and I think not only in terms of what's gone on the pitch, but I think Borough have also, from results as well, managed to build up ahead of steam in the sense of this group has been really pretty much a shuttle squad of what the actual squad is. You look on the bench today, and we haven't touched on it, but Callum Britton's on the bench. Riley McGree gets on the pitch. David Strelets and Cali Sen look like they're going to be back soon. Dale Fry obviously plays today but comes back at Stoke. The momentum that Borough have built has absolutely been due to the results and due to the performances, and obviously a late winner always helps. But the fact that they've then been able to, hopefully, and it looks like, get one over Birmingham and win a transfer battle, then win 3 games, then add Callum Britton, Riley McGree, Dale Fry back into a squad that's already competitive, it does feel like there is a real momentum and, as I say, head of steam building up, which it can only make Borough fans even more excited than they already are, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. But the next three are as difficult as you're going to get in this division at the minute, which Norwich, which sounds daft when you look at the league table and see them still sort of loitering round the drain pipe of the Championship, but they've been pretty good under Clement since he's gone there. But the main man up top isn't Josh Sargent. So the centre forward is a interesting one, Jovan McArmer, who, as people will know from listening to the podcast, I went to university at Lincoln. They are a second team to me, and he was their player last year. Played as a centre forward, played off the right. Very interesting profile if you look at him as a player off the right. He's about 6'2", 6'3", big unit, bit of pace about him. Looks clumsy when you watch him, but the stats speak for themselves so far this season, and he scored 10 league goals in his debut campaign in the Championship, which is, well, top draw really, considering they signed him for £1 million from Lincoln. Yeah, he looks like a serious Championship number 9, considering the when you look round the division this season, there isn't too many of those about that are playing in the number 9 position and getting double figures by this stage. And McArmer has sort of stepped up and been Norwich's focal point in a difficult time this season, but also in the absence of Sargent as well.
Yeah, two things I'd like to touch on from what you've just said. Firstly, you saying that you've got a second team. Honestly, nonsense, because everyone is the enemy, as you know, Nathan. You can't have second teams. And also, Nathan's only a fan of McCarmer because I have heard rumours that he bought you a shot once on a night out. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did share a Jaeger bomb after a Lincoln win.
So there you go. He might even sort of wink up to you when he sticks the second in on next week. No, I'm just joking. Hopefully not. But yeah, just to put into perspective in simpler terms of how much Norwich have turned round since, well, really they changed manager at pretty much the same time as us. Dom Shaw put out a league table since Kim Hellberg took over. So from that moment, and that doesn't factor in today's result. But Norwich have played 11, the same as Middlesbrough. This is before today. Middlesbrough, if the league table was based on that, sits second behind Ipswich. Norwich are only fourth in that league. So one place separates those two sides since Kim Hellberg, and I don't know timeline exactly, but I think Clement was pretty soon after that. So it might have even been before, do you know, when he was announced? I can't really remember. But what I'm trying to say is they really have turned it round. So it's not like you're playing a wherever they sit in the table. I know everyone looks at the table and thinks, right, well, they're rubbish. But form wise, they're not that at all.
Yeah, definitely not. They just had a really, really poor start at the beginning of this season under Liam Manning. So it is one of those where you have to look at the context around the situation and understand that since this new manager's come in, that they are a different side and they are in the league position that they're in currently because they've had to recover a really terrible start to the season. So yeah, I mean, fingers crossed the way that this week will go is that Norwich do a little bit of a nice favour for us on the Monday night
Yeah,
against
they
against
just
Coventry.
exert all of their energy in a fierce battle that results in them winning at home on Monday night. So much so that they pick up a fair few injuries and are just absolutely goosed by the time that we have to play them. And then they just roll over and say, we're spent from the other night, but we did beat Coventry, so that would be ideal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, totally. And if they want to come here and play compact and box off the midfield and not let Hackney and Morris play, we'll just have Bagsman TC running behind.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're giving away the game plan a little bit there. You're starting to sound like Hellberg in his press conferences. But no, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. We've got the excitement of the transfers, the excitement of just watching Borough play football in general. And of course, we are in a position on a Saturday evening where things have gone our way really so far this weekend. So obviously, between now and the next podcast, hopefully we have a bit of news on a striker or even some other, I don't know, out there diamond that Chris Jones pulls out. We should say, actually, whilst we are still recording, all our very best wishes and well wishes for his recovery go to Kieran Scott. Obviously, it has now been announced from the papers that the Gazette and the Northern Echo that Kieran Scott did have to have emergency surgery, so he is stable and recovering. But of course, we do absolutely send our best wishes to him. And of course, Chris Jones as well, who's overseeing everything. So, I'm sure between him, I'm sure everyone listened to the podcast with the pair of them. I'm sure everyone acknowledges that he's a safe pair of hands as well. But of course, the utmost important thing is the fact that Kieran Scott is recovering and looking like he's in a lot better of a situation than perhaps he was before that emergency surgery. So yeah, all the best, Kieran. All the best to everyone that's watched and listened this week. Thank you everyone for watching and listening as always. Please do remember to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and on audio platforms. You can rate and review. It definitely does help us out and helps other people find the podcast. So thanks very much in advance if you could do that. From myself and Nathan, thanks as ever for watching and listening. And that's been another episode of the Boropolis podcast.